evening. This is part 3 of Collected Fables by James Thurber. The Scotty Who Knew Too Much. Several summers ago, there was a Scotty who went to the country for a visit. He decided that all the farm dogs were cowards because they were afraid of a certain animal that had a white stripe down its back. You are a pussycat, and I can lick you, Scotty said to the farm dog who lived in the house where Scotty was visiting. I can lick the little animal with the white stripe too. Show him to me. Do you want to ask any questions about him? Said the farm dog. Nah, said the Scotty. You ask the questions. So the farm dog took the Scotty into the woods and showed him the white striped animal, and the Scotty closed in on him, growling and slashing. It was all over in a moment. And the Scotty lay on his back. When he came to, the farm dog said, What happened? He threw vitriol, said the Scotty, but he never laid a glove on me. A few days later, the farm dog told the Scotty there was another animal all the farm dogs were afraid of. Lead me to him, said the Scotty. I can lick anything that doesn't wear horseshoes. Don't you want to ask any questions about him? Said the farm dog. No, said the Scotty. Just show me where he hangs out. So the farm dog led him to a place in the woods and pointed out the little animal when he came along. A clown, said the Scotty, a pushover, and he closed in, leading with his left and exhibiting some mighty fancy footwork. In less than a second, the Scotty was flat on his back, and when he woke up, the farm dog was pulling quills out of him. What happened? Said the farm dog. He pulled a knife on me, said the Scotty, but at least I have learned how to fight out here in the country, and now I am going to beat you up. So he closed in on the farm dog, holding his nose with one front paw toward off the vitriol, covering his eyes with the other front paw to keep out the knives. The Scotty couldn't see his opponent, and he couldn't smell his opponent, and he was so badly beaten that he had to be taken back to the city and put in a nursing home. Moral: it is better to ask some of the questions than to know all of the answers. I read that one a little fast. I apologize. The Bear Who Let It Alone. In the woods of the far west, there once lived a brown bear who could rake it or let it alone. He would go into a bar where they sold mead, a fermented drink made of honey, and he would have just 2 drinks. Then he would put some money on the bar and say, See what the bears in the back room will have, and he would go home. But finally, he took to drinking by himself most of the day. He would reel home at night, nick over the umbrella stand, knock down the bridge lamps, and ram his elbows through the windows. Then he would collapse on the floor and lie there until he went to sleep. His wife was greatly distressed, and his children were very frightened. At length, the bear saw the error of his ways and began to reform. In the end, he became a famous teetotaler and a persistent temperance lecturer. He would tell everybody that came into the house about the awful effects of drink, and he would boast about how strong and well he had become since he gave up touching the stuff. To demonstrate this, he would stand on his head and on all of his hands, and he would turn cartwheels in the house, kicking over the umbrella stand, knocking down the bridge lamps, and ramming his elbows through the windows. Then he would lie down on the floor, tired by his healthful exercise, and go to sleep. His wife was greatly distressed, and his children were very frightened. Moral: you might as well fall flat on your face as lean over too far backward. I like this picture. The Owl Who Was God. Once upon a starless midnight, there was an owl who sat on the branch of an oak tree. Two ground moles tried to slip quietly by, unnoticed. "You," said the owl. "Who?" they quavered, in fear and astonishment, for they could not believe it was possible for anyone to see them in that thick darkness. "You two," said the owl. The moles buried away, and the other creatures of the field and the forest, that the owl was the greatest and wisest of all the animals, because he could see in the dark, and because he could answer any question. "I'll see about that," said a secretary bird, and he called on the owl one night when it was again very dark. "How many claws am I holding up?" said the secretary bird. "Two," said the owl, and that was right. "Can you give me another expression for 'that is to say,' or 'namely'?" asked the secretary bird. "To wit," said the owl. "Why does a lover call on his love?" asked the secretary bird. "To woo," said the owl. The secretary bird hastened back to the other creatures and reported that the owl was indeed the greatest and wisest animal in the world, because he could see in the dark and because he could answer any question. "Can he see in the daytime too?" asked the red fox. "Yes," echoed a dormouse and a French poodle. "Can he see in the daytime too?" All the other creatures laughed loudly at this silly question, and they set upon the red fox and his friends and drove them out of the region. Then they sent a messenger to the owl and asked him to be their leader. When the owl appeared among the animals, and it was high noon, and the sun was shining brightly. He walked very slowly, which gave him an appearance of great dignity, and he peered about him with large staring eyes, which gave him an air of tremendous importance. "He's God!" screamed a Plymouth rock hen, and the others took up the cry, "He's God!" So they followed him wherever he went, and when he began to bump into things, they began to bump into things too. Finally, he came to a concrete highway, and he started up the middle of it, and all of the other creatures followed him. Presently a hawk, who was acting as outrider, observed a truck coming toward them at 50 miles an hour, and he reported to the secretary bird, and the secretary bird reported to the owl. "There's danger ahead," said the secretary bird. "Do it?" said the owl. The secretary bird told him. "Aren't you afraid?" he asked. "Who?" said the owl calmly, for he could not see the truck. "He's God!" cried all the creatures again, and they were still crying. "He's God!" when the truck hit them and ran them down. Some of the animals were merely injured, but most of them, including the owl, were killed. Moral: you can fool too many of the people too much of the time. This book is really dark. This will be the last one of the night. The Sheep in Wolf's Clothing. Not very long ago, there were two sheep who put on wolf's clothing and went among the wolves as spies to see what was going on. They arrived on a fete day when all of the wolves were singing in the taverns or dancing in the street. The first sheep said to his companion, "Wolves are just like us, for they gambol and frisk every day in fete day in Wolfland." He made some notes on a piece of paper, which a spy should never do, and he headed them, "My 24 hours in Wolfland," for he had decided not to be a spy any longer, but to write a book on Wolfland and also some articles for the Sheep's Home Companion. The other sheep guessed what he was planning to do, so he slipped away and began to write a book called My 10 Hours in Wolfland. The first sheep suspected that was what was up when he found his friend had gone, so he wired a book to his publisher called My 5 Hours in Wolfland, and it was announced for publications first. The other sheep immediately sold his manuscript to a newspaper syndicate for serialization. Both sheep gave up the same message to their fellows. Wolves were just like sheep, for they gambled and frisked, and every day was feast day in Wolfland. The citizens of Sheepland were convinced by all this, so they drew in their sentinels and they let down their barrows. When the wolves descended on them one night, howling and slavering, the sheep were as easy to kill as flies on a window pane. Moral: don't get it right, just get it written. That will do it for tonight. Sleep well.